curriculum and other life work skills that students could be developing through such projects. So I'll be showcasing the work of a lot of teachers around the world, elementary, secondary and college, and talking about a lot of people that some of you may already know. I work with the online virtual world game Quest Atlantis for about 11 years, and then at the same time discovered Minecraft and worked in a project with some colleagues of mine here in Australia, Dean Groom and Joe Kay, on a project called Massively Minecraft, where we managed an out-of-school server where the students really designed the space. And because it wasn't an academic program, it had some of the freedoms that other aspects of using Minecraft may not have. And a lot of good lessons were learnt through that about what's possible. And certainly gave me, coming from Quest Atlantis for all that time with Arizona State University, Centre for Games and Impact, and then Minecraft gave me a fervent belief that the gold standard in learning with Minecraft is when we give the space and the tools over to the learners. And so that's going to be the premise from which I'm speaking today, and the projects that I'll be showing you will all relate to that. So that's kind of an important point to start from. This won't be so much about what teachers can design, but what teachers can scaffold in their classroom for the students to design. And I'm certainly open to questions. So if people want to ask in the chat, or if you're running a project that's really interesting to the employees that we're building. So I'm just going to jump over to kick us off. And my background, you can contact me through Twitter or email, and I'll give you more details later. And I'll certainly be telling you about a research project I'm doing where I want to contact schools or educators getting started in using Minecraft, so that I'll be able to help mentor you in what you're doing, and perhaps you share your story as part of my research. So think about that. If you're getting started in using Minecraft in an educational context, I'd really love to hear from you. So let's move on. Hopefully my script will be a little slow. Okay, we're figuring with the snow, perhaps the whole of the East Coast USA is busily watching Netflix and TV, snuggling up watching telly. Okay, so Minecraft experience, one word, .net. So not difficult to find at all. And in that space, we've been collecting stories of educational contexts using Minecraft. And all of the stories I tell you today are going to come from that. So if you need to find out what they are, you can reference back to that wiki. It is a wiki and it is a crowdsourced space. So we're looking at building out, as I've rather grandly called it, mapping the genome of Minecraft. So it's looking at what does Minecraft look like when it's lived out in projects around the world. And so there are a lot of contributing teachers, such as Dates in China and his previous work in Guatemala and other countries. We've got teachers in the USA, teachers in Australia and New Zealand, teachers contributing from the UK and Japan. So lots of educators sharing their story and the children's work. We also have parents, homeschoolers and students talking about their experience in Minecraft. So it's little by little being out into a lot of juicy content. So I would encourage you to go and have a look. At the end of this session, I'll give you the join code. If you want to join the wiki, just to come along and join. It does a wiki that does have children contributing to it, and so it's not a completely open wiki. We do vet who joins, so there's a join code, and I go through and look at the people joining to ensure that and monitor the space so that we know that the kids who might be contributing here will always feel comfortable. So encourage you to have a look and come and join us on the wiki, and I might put the join code in there if you want to come and join us. So I'll just pop that into the chat, and the address. It's a very simple little crowdsourced wiki, so it has doesn't have all the whistles and bells, but that's not what it's about. It's about sharing out the stories of educators around the world doing really cool stuff. And so in most parts, it points back to their work already published in their blogs and wikis and other spaces. There's a great deal of video content, which I won't share today. I'm just using photos from their work, but a lot of video there to help you understand how each of these projects came about. Moving on. I'm going to tell you firstly about open-ended challenges, because we did say we'd talk today about projects and challenges. And challenges are, to me, those smaller level kinds of work we set for students. On the we have a link to a Google Doc called 101 Open-Ended Minecraft Challenges. Now, these are varied, and they're also contributed to by educators all around the world. And these were started in connection with a 3D Game Lab course, and then left open for a bit. So once again, if you have an idea for using Minecraft in a challenge, then this is the place to go. But the kind of things we have there, it's interesting. We tried not to rate them by what level of education they might relate to or by what curriculum area they might relate to. But what we've suggested is the name of the challenge, so to make them sound fun, and then describe the challenge, and then what evidence would students produce that would show they have met the challenge. So for each of these challenges, you'll see there's a challenge, and so the very simple first one is build your home with a sign to proudly show it and others that may visit you. So that's a very simple challenge. Well, how will students evidence that they've completed that challenge? Well, they would by with a friend or giving access for someone to come and visit in their house. Try to students prove what's they're using for them. And then we rate not against curriculum, but the kind of activity that students might be doing in that challenge. Oh, I'm not aware there's a problem. What's the problem? Am I too far from the mic? Okay, not loud enough? Are people not hearing me? Okay, yeah, I'll try and speak louder. Okay, let's see how we go. And sorry, Beth, if there's a problem, I'll try and speak a little louder. Okie doke. So what we tried to say was, well, what kind of activity, what kind of engagement is this for the learners? And so we invented some ratings: explorer, builder, designer, identity builder, inventor, collaborator, mentor, scientist, leader, thought leader. And as people have contributed to that document of challenges, they've also created other ratings. Challenges that could just as readily be used in a K6 setting as they could be used in a more senior academic context. You see the detail of the challenge. So there's a whole lot of those there that are intended to be open-ended. You throw down a challenge and see where the students take it. And certainly one of the things we learnt from Massive Minecraft was that we could imagine the places kids would take this learning, this collaboration, to watch where they would take it first. And that's a really big point, I think, that educators using Minecraft have to learn to, as my colleague in America, Marianne Malmstrom, says, follow the learning. So out of the way and let the kids challenge to them and see where they take it. Know, of course, what your assessment might want to be. So that's why we've said how would students evidence their challenges being completed. But let them imagine where it could go and how they can, how it can evolve and how they can collaborate. This is, after all, a technology that they are much more expert than we. And no matter if we do invest that 10,000 hours, we'll probably never catch up to where a 13-year-old is. But we don't have to be. We just have to throw down appropriate challenges and scaffold the learning for them to get to. So again, this 101 open-ended Minecraft challenges is linked on the Minecraft Experience Wiki, and you can jump in, and I'd certainly love to encourage you, if you have a language challenge or another kind of challenge that you would like to include, to add those. It's an open source document that can be contributed to by anyone. But we just want to stick to the rule, fun name, identify the challenge in a 1 or 2 sentence. What will students do that, what will learners do that will evidence the completion of the challenge, and what kind of skills are they learning when they're working on it? Are there any history lessons? Absolutely, Mr. J. There are history lessons, but we don't identify them as history, but most certainly, and I will be talking about some history projects as I move on. So, sorry, I'm going through this convoluted way of getting to my slides at the moment, so it's kind of a bit tricky, but we're getting there. And I'll just stop to have a look and see if there are any other questions. Evidencing challenges is really interesting, Peggy. That could be a screen capture of a walkthrough of a space they've created. It could be they've created machinima, which is a movie story of their work. It could be just screenshots. It could be an interview with someone who visited their space. Any number of different ways. It could be just sharing a sequence of photographs of their build in its different stages. Or so they might include a design diagram, a photograph of when they first started building, and then some photographs along the way through to completion. So lots of different media being used. Yes, they're in the wiki. People asking where the challenges can be found. It's in the wiki, and if you go, you'll see 101 Minecraft challenges. It's on the wiki. There's a column on the right-hand side where all the pages are listed. So you'll find them there. Are we using events? Yes, absolutely. There are events as well, and I'll be talking about some of those. So I'm going to just jump into some of the projects now. So we've moved on from smaller challenges. And just to say, in the Massively Minecraft space, there were it was an open-ended space with 100 or so challenges designed by Joe Kay and the kids in the space. And so challenges were added as students invented them. And students could choose which of those challenges to do. And that's certainly something I also agree is part of the gold standard of using Minecraft, is to offer students options on what they're doing. So they have choice. So they have greater investment when they feel they made a choice about what they're doing. And so they're also choosing a trajectory through a sequence of challenges. So if they want to take, if you look at that 101 challenges, if you want to take the Explorer route or the Identity Builder route, then it shows other challenges you might do in that trajectory. And I think that's really important for students to feel they have agency. And providing more challenges than you might, the curriculum is a great way to go. That's complete. So going on to bigger projects, I'm going to tell you about some projects from around the world and in various aspects. And the very first one is at Wilbury Primary School in the UK, and that's their Ancient Worlds project. And 4 people comment about all boys in this picture. I believe the school is a boys' school, so I'm the gender equity person who usually hammers those issues, but I'm just going to point that out when you see this picture with the boys. But what they were doing in this project, and this is again linked off the wiki, is learning about ancient worlds, and in this case it's ancient Rome. And so they did their research first, as any good group wanting to design or build would do. Now, in this case, the teacher was setting up the scaffold, giving them the project and telling them they were going to build it or design some aspect of ancient Rome that they thought was important to the world. And so in every case in these projects, they were looking at how the ancient world has impacted the modern world. And so you'll see the students here in the early phase thinking about and mapping the ideas of what they might need to do. They went on to research ancient Rome and the aspects of ancient Rome that were important, and what might they then bring into Minecraft, and how could they model that in the blocky world of Minecraft to make it an experience as opposed to an artifact drawn from the world. And so they created, and if you have a look on the wiki, they have a number of different other projects, Mayan and others. They're not all ancient Europe. And in the end, in their assessment work, the students had a world they created. They could walk through, they could take people on a tour of ancient Rome. And the evidence of their research was in how they created the world. So the level of detail, in fact, when you leave students to work in this kind of way, the level of detail they bring into their build is huge. They really want to bring up something that looks the world they've discovered. And you'll often see things like having a split screen up with Minecraft in one screen and some Minecraft to work. But it even goes further than that in terms of bringing history to life. These students staged gladiator events in the world and hosted markets and kinds of events that might have happened in ancient Rome. So I think it's really important to understand that it's not just about the build, it's about building an environment. And within that environment, they can then begin to imagine or put themselves in the space. And I know one of the things we learnt from the Quest Atlantis environment, we did quite a lot of research of children learning in a virtual world environment and children learning in high quality, more traditional environments, was that kids learning in a virtual space like this rebuild of ancient Rome, actually felt like they'd been to Rome. They felt invested in it, they cared about it, and they had thought much more deeply about it, what it might have been like to live there. And so I think, we can't underestimate the investment kids make when they build it themselves. What's the oldest age of students that can learn from Minecraft? I do think kids can age out of Minecraft in a school context, but as you'll see through some of the projects I'm going to show you, there are ways to bring it into other contexts where you're leveraging that deep experience that 15, 16-year-olds might have. I think, 13, 14 in a school context is probably where kids are less interested in Minecraft, but I'm going to show you a context that might break that in a minute. So, okay, that's Wilbury Primary School in the UK, and so they were reliving ancient history through Minecraft. Let's jump over to another context now and think about summer camp projects. Now, these are again design projects, but in a different challenge. And this is Heathrow Elementary School and they're part of county, which has had a really rich history of running virtual world summer camps. And these are a great place to start with exploring project-based learning in Minecraft if a district or a school hasn't done it before. Seminole County runs summer camp groups where kids work virtually from their schools and come together at different times to work in the centre. And so each year they work on a particular challenge. In a previous year in Quest Atlantis, they had worked on the Gulf of Mexico oil spill and designed a recovery space for wildlife. So that's where I first met these educators in using Quest Atlantis. But this example I'm showing you here is students exploring the key question, can learning from past mistakes help us build a better society? And so the teachers created a graphic novel from their own little builds in Minecraft with some text in it, and threw down a challenge to the students to look at how exploring disasters in the world and how we could build a better, safer, cleaner, healthier world in their summer camp projects. And so the students researched what goes wrong. What past mistakes do we have to learn from? And how can we leverage those to create a better world? And then to build that better world with its safer content in Minecraft. These students were investigating which were human-made. You can't necessarily protect as well as we might want to from Snowzilla or whatever it's being called this week. But there are certainly plenty of examples of where human interaction with them has been detrimental. And so their build in each of the projects, if you have a look, they picked different issues for each one. And the Heathrow Tree School had those recorded on their example. Workers' team and their online in the virtual. So while looking at this, we see there's a pattern here of research that the students need to do to preface their work. Is deep learning. Okay, role play events are really exciting, and I already touched on a minor version of that with the gladiator events that were staged at Wilbury. But this story comes from a school in New Jersey, the Elizabeth Morrow School. And this teacher is a really interesting case because she was not a game player and not a Minecraft fan. But after a number of years of watching it being used in the computer lab at her school, she came up with an idea of how she might use it in her studies of democracy. And so, yes, that's No Clue School. Was No Clue School, yes. Marianne Malmstrom's school. So Carolyn Bleasner, brilliant teacher, dedicated teacher, every year runs a unit on a program on democracy. And what she did in her first year of using Minecraft, set up a context for the students to experience other than democracy. So in the first year, they had a role play inside Minecraft where they played out a dictatorship. So one student was made the dictator, and the others had ranks within that, but they were all at the behest of the dictator. Last year when I saw this played out at the school and was lucky enough to be in the room for some of the activities, they were playing a monarchy. Now, the idea being that the teacher sets up a context. In the monarchy, there was a queen, there were noble men and women, and then there were the peasants. And so the peasants had to mine to pay taxes. So they had to mine and produce food and other resources and pay those to the noble people, who then passed on taxes to the queen. And the teacher sets up the context and scaffolds it, puts people in teams. And what you can see in the picture is the student teams and the research notes. A lot of what happens in this project doesn't take place in Minecraft itself. A lot of course around the game. I think around it's what he tells us about games. He said, which is the piece of be. But the big discourse conversations, the community that builds around play, and that's where most all learning takes place. And that was certainly the case in this game. So the way they play this, over 5 weeks, a student was chosen to be the queen, and she was quite a mild little, very quick, very bossy, because queen, she could do anything she wanted, no one in check. And so she was raising the taxes and all sorts of things, into this. But for play, the peasants have to mine and mine and mine and mine to pay their taxes, because that's what they need to do. And so the noble people are building beautiful homes and whatever else, collecting tax and passing it on to the queen, and doing their part in the monarchy. But when they're not playing, they can have stuff happened in the game. What will get at taxes is really fair, and they start to get into the dialogue of fairness of this kind of system. And so that plays out a lot of discussion. Each night that they've played, the children write a reflection on their play. What happened in the monarchy? Not playing Minecraft. It's about what happened in their role in society. It's funny. It was funny enough, the day the kids had some discussion before lunch, went out to lunch and came back in ready to play. And in the first 2 or 3 minutes that I was there, the one of the students had assassinated the queen. And so, there'd been a plot over lunch, and they decided to take out the queen, and there was a big uproar. So the game was stopped, and they sat in their circle and talked about it. So obviously killing the queen couldn't be unpunished, but it was, discussion of why did it happen, how did it come about, they were plotting in the background, all this, and the unfairness of the queen, how all this power had gone to her head. And the idea of all this role play is that students feel like they've experienced the things that have led to democracy. And so they go through other systems, they look at other systems and understand perhaps why democracy is a better way to go. Imperfect, but a better way to go. Not good to kill the queen, Peggy, not at all. And it was decided that the perpetrator would have to be banished from the kingdom. So that person then had to go out on their own resources outside of the city and exist by themselves. It was a very funny day, but the kids were really into the roles of the story. And this is like on 15 minutes play 2 or 3 times a week. It's not a huge amount of in-game play. And they were building the world, of course, building the city, building it all up. This teacher, all she did was start over and end the server in each of the sessions. But the clever idea she had was scaffolding the friction for the kids. So when the Queen was assassinated, she was the military and nominated someone to be Lord in place of the Queen. So she had a role for herself in the story. And part of her role actually was to create, to destabilize things. And so the students would have to deal with issues. So it's a really fantastic piece of work, and I really love being there on the day and watching these students play it out. Yeah, being the Queen, she was really upset, the little girl who had been assassinated. She thought they were totally unfair, but she had really let being the Queen go to her head. And previously the same with the dictator group in the year before. It was a lot of fun. But certainly an abject lesson in the history of why groups have come to democracy. So let's look at the next example. So this is a project run out of Australia by educators here called Mind Class, and groups can come in and join this if they're interested. But what it does is service kids in an international groups coming together on shared servers to create their own projects. It's very student driven. And again, the educators are there to scaffold the learning that kids might do. And so they're creating their own deep projects, and the educators support them, vet who gets access to the servers, and it's got students collaborating from the UK, USA, Australia, New Zealand, I'm going to say Singapore and the Philippines, but certainly students from around the world. And again, it really fits with my ethos of setting up spaces, setting up challenges, and then allowing the students to design what happens. In this case, the students are designing the challenge as well, and that's very exciting. So another project I would encourage you to take a look at, and it's also referenced on the Minecraft Experience Wiki. Introducing disruption is great fun for a teacher. It's a really great role to play if you're setting up projects, to set up some role for yourself as the disruptor to the system. And I know Mary Ann Malmstrom ran a project called Escape Tomorrow, and the work there was students, the scenario was, this world of ours has run out of resources. We have to leave the planet and go to a new planet. You have to work as a team to build a rocket and get enough resources to leave and go to the new planet and build. And then different things would happen when they reach the new planet. There might be disasters. You could have a tornado come through. That's a really fun role for the teacher overnight, to come in and blow up some of the kids' work, because you get to be the tornado or the blizzard or the hurricane that came through, or the war that was sieged and destroyed some of the environment. So don't underestimate the fun you can have. I want to give a shout out to the American Museum of Natural History and the work that's being done there in using Minecraft, and you can see with much older students than the elementary or primary students you might have seen in previous shots. Now the museum uses Minecraft in relation to learning about systems, and so they have an exhibit on food systems in the museum, and they ran these intensive one-day Minecraft days where the students were testing out, in conjunction with their learning from the exhibit, how to build food systems. So food systems, taking food from the farm to the table, and how does that happen, and how do you build it? And so it was very integrated with what was happening in the exhibit, with what was happening in Minecraft, and they were reinventing aspects of that in the game. So really cool stuff. They were building the transport, looking at how you you transport food. And not all foods can transport the same way. how do you get fresh produce and ensure it's fresh produce, and looking at getting that throughout the day back to the real world. It wasn't just building in this imaginary space, it was building in relation to the real world. And this is the fine work of Barry Joseph at the American Museum of Natural History. And he's done quite a bit of work with Minecraft itself in other projects when he was with Global Kids. So if you want to look for some of Barry's project ideas, he's very creative and has some excellent work happening. But what I liked about this was it gave an extension to the learning in the exhibit of the museum. And it was a way for the students to really engage with the exhibit by recreating systems in Minecraft. Okay, it doesn't look like a real city and it is kind of blocky, but interestingly enough, kids get well beyond that when they can create the system themselves. So it's really quite exciting. And as you can see, I think these students were 14, 15, looking at various ages in this program. So that's another great example. And I'm just going to show you what is, I think, my favourite example in terms of really making an impact with projects in Minecraft. Now, I think that the uber learning that can happen is when we relate projects like the museum project clearly back to the physical world, whether that's the historical physical world, the social physical world, or in this case, the actual local physical world. Now, this is a project by UN Habitat and in conjunction with Mojang that's been running for a couple of years now, called Block by Block. And it's quite interesting in that they go into communities, and recent projects have run in Mexico and Haiti and Nigeria, and they go into communities where, and the background to this work is that there's a lot of research on social development is heavily related to environmental development. And so getting back into the heart of a town will really help reinvigorate the town and the town's people and the community and the social context. And so what this project does is builds out a map of a local area as it is now, and then brings together in a massive LAN party of kids, elders, grandparents, civic leaders, and others together to redesign that town centre. Now, in this case, the town centre, as it is in a lot of developing nations, may be surrounding the school because that's where people come, parents come. It might be where they get fresh water. It might be related to some other aspect of living. And so in this case, it's the playground. And so it's looking at the playground in the big LAN party. Groups get together and redesign that area, that playground, that town centre, that village square. And the beautiful thing here is this is kids 14, 15 and up working with their grandparents and other people in the city together, building and redesigning and thinking about, okay, well, we can't put a bike path there because it might be too close to where people want to sit. So they're moving things around, they're shifting, they're talking about. It's a very collaborative space. It's very they're able to tinker with things and have a conversation around it with other people. It's not just the kids redesigning. This is a real community project. And it would be really fantastic if it just stopped there. But what happens in Block by Block is when they come to a design that people are happy with, the design is output to architects who then realise that as proper architectural plans, and the work begins on redesigning or redeveloping that area. Now, there are so many ways you can apply this to local context, and certainly Derek Robertson in Scotland has done this in Dundee with he got a grant from the local city council for schools in his area to redesign the use of the foreshore area, the harbour foreshore area. And so the kids did that, and then they gave an architectural exhibit to the town, to the city people and the civic leaders, and they looked at the children's plans and what the kids wanted. And the kids had to go research what would other people, not just their age group, what did other people want out of that foreshore area. So I think I'm ending on this story because I think Minecraft is a conduit to a lot of things, to a real experience and real impact on the world. That really gets me excited. If it can be the space that brings people together, to tinker with and to play and explore, and then go and actually realise it somewhere in time. So I'm just going to go to my last slide and then ask if there were questions. I'm sorry I didn't observe the questions very well along the way, but if you don't mind repeating, or I'll scroll up. Just to say, if you want to get started, if you're not using Minecraft, and I'm glad to see some people have been sharing some of their projects, which is fantastic, please come and join the wiki and tell your story. But also, if you haven't been working with Minecraft yet and you want to, please contact me, because I'm collecting global stories of people getting started. Because from my communities of practice background, and indeed that's what I have my PhD in, the best person to teach a novice is someone who was recently a novice. And so hearing the stories of these fantastic stories are inspiring, but they may not be the ones that get us started. Hearing the stories of people just like you, who I've just started and a little bit ahead of you, is a really great way to build out our practice in using Minecraft to do stellar things. Yeah, it's not so overwhelming, Peggy, absolutely. When we see fabulous people like Marianne, no clue to a lot of people in the virtual world, or Peggy Sheehy, or Steve Isaacs, or a number of really Diane Main, people doing fantastic stuff with Minecraft. When you see those people, they're so expert. Sometimes it seems too far a reach for many people who are just about to dip their toes. And so what I'm doing is collecting global stories of people getting started using Minecraft to do fantastic things in their academic context, whether that's a school, or that's homeschooling, or it's a university, or it's a project like UN Habitat that's an outside of school global project. So lots of really cool stuff happening, and I just wanted to share some of the bigger projects. That's a really good conversation about where we stand with the new Minecraft educational version that's been announced. And Minecraft EDU users will all still be supported for now and have free accounts for, I think, in the new version. But it looks like Microsoft is going to make it more integral to 365 and other Microsoft tools. Interesting. I'm a fan of what makes Minecraft mainstream. I think there is a lot of good happening. There's a really good team of people at Microsoft working on this. And the Mojang people who've stayed around to be part of it are really excited as well. So I think good things will happen. It will only build out from what Minecraft EDU built up and what the great work Joel Levin had done. So I don't think there'll be any loss there. It'll be an enhancement on what Joel had developed and what Teacher Gaming and Joel had developed. For a while, I believe there won't be mods, but vanilla will still be available if people want to take that up in their school. But I think mods will come. Because part of what is really exciting with Minecraft is, and I'm going to reference Peggy Sheehy's work here in New York, in that I was in her school when her students had come to her, her year 8s had said, we want to set up a Minecraft server, and she's very democratic in her teaching. And so she said to the students, well, okay, will you write a proposal for it to the principal and tell why you want it, how it's going to benefit the school, what are the risks involved, what's the return on investment for us if we let you have it. And so they had to put a proposal to the principal on how they would manage the server, what technical risks there might be, what was the commitment of time by the IT people, who was going to run it, etc., etc. And they did. The principal approved, and I was there the day they were designing the charter for the server. And so this was a team of about 8 year 8 students, girls and boys, and they were talking about all the servers they'd been on in the world, around the world, and what they didn't like about some servers. And so they were crafting a charter for their server that would take all the best of what they'd learnt from other places and make it a safe place. And it was a very mature discussion that these kids were having about what constituted a safe place and what kind of rules did they want and not want. And they didn't want a space where all the rules said, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, because, that's what people say to kids all the time. So they were framing it a very positive way. It was fantastic. And because hers is a middle school, Suffolk Middle School, Suffolk County, yeah. The kids were giving this as a legacy to the school. So they were moving on, and this would be their legacy, to leave this Minecraft server, its management, its charter, and everything to the school. And they did end up setting that up. But that's a powerful lesson for kids if they're the managers of the server. If they're the ones running it, and, they, as we all know with class rules, if you let the kids decide the class rules, they stick to them much better than if someone arbitrarily gave them a set of rules. And so there's a similar project in Tasmania with Danelle Batty, where her students came to her and said they wanted a Minecraft server, and she scaffolded and support them. The kids did some learning with Joe Kay in the Massively Minecraft space, and they set up and still manage and run a server. And some of their kids, the kids from Danelle's school, have given TED Talks and other projects. They've really blossomed in their leadership since they've been supported in doing that sort of work. So that's really exciting. If we can get out of the way of the kids and support them to do what they want to do, I think we've got some really exciting Minecraft work. And I don't think that ages out. I know Danelle's school's a high school, and so the students there were 13, 14, 15. And David Deeds has been doing work with students older than that, and indeed in academic context learning about it. I'd like to see it more in teacher preparation, so that people learning to be teachers had a better experience of what this is all about. And certainly in the MOOC now, many teachers are getting in and exploring this for themselves, and you can't really support this if you haven't had a taste of it yourself. Thanks, Mr. J. Great. Tucking the kids in. Any other questions? I know I've kind of blathered on, but I wanted to kind of give people a taste of some of the things I'm excited by, so I hope you are. There are plenty of other projects where teachers have designed spaces for kids to come in and play them, but I think if we can invest that little bit more and that little bit more patience to have the children design, I think we actually come up with a higher quality product and much deeper learning. Did anyone share a fabulous project that we need to point to? I'm just scrolling back. Thanks to those people who've put links in to share. Discussions about Mahara. And certainly, yes, there's a lot of work being done on Minecraft and its interfacing to other things. So interfacing to a Raspberry Pi, so you can do things with programmable bits that happen in the virtual world and vice versa. And so there's a lot of really exciting stuff happening around coding with Minecraft. I just didn't have a project specifically to show yet on that, but I'm collecting a few ideas on some really cool things that are going on. But people are all tinkering around the edges of what's possible, and that's very exciting. Any questions? Yes, no clue. For people who don't know, that's Marianne Malmstrom. She was at the Elizabeth Morrow School in New Jersey. She's just about to embark on a big change in her career, and I'm sure she won't mind me telling you, but she's going to New Zealand to become the e-learning director in a school in Wellington, New Zealand, and very excited about it. New Zealand, if you want to have a look at some really cool stuff happening in New Zealand, Minecraft is really on a bit of a zeitgeist there. A lot of very good teachers doing great work with it. And so Miriam is leaving the USA and heading off to New Zealand, but still she'll be around doing great stuff in a different context. What's the biggest amount of students that were working on one challenge at the same time? Well, I think in the UN Habitat work, they're not on the one map, so they're working on different maps because they're looking at different groups redesigning and then comparing designs. But in that one, in some of the big venues they've had like 300 people working on machines. So, but on servers working on the one project, Massively Minecraft has like 300 to 500 on the server, but they're never all on the same time because it's a global project. I really don't know that. Yeah, but they're not on the same map, Thorsten. They're working on different maps, so they're not all 300 working on the one object in the world. One thing I do have to say fascinates me about children. If you got 10 adults into a space and said, let's build a castle, well, we'd want to set out who's doing what and have a meeting and delegate jobs and do this and do that before we got anything going. And yet I watch kids every day in Minecraft just get in and get started, and they're collaborating and just making decisions on the fly in really interesting ways. They really are different creatures. And it's not that they're not planned, it's just that they seem to work in much more seamless ways than we as adults do in these spaces. There you go, Joe's just telling you the figures there. 1,800 now and 30-ish kids on the server together at the same time. And that's pretty much how the licensing with Minecraft EDU went, that you could buy a license, but you weren't, you were at the number of, the license was how many you could have on at any one time. In most schools, you're never going to have the entire school or the entire academic cohort online at the same time. And I know with the homeschooling projects that run, I think they really only have 30 or 40. The camps from Connected Learning, and they run summer camps for Minecraft, and I would encourage you to have a look at those. I think they run 30 to 50 at a time, but I'm not entirely sure, it's also more asynchronous once the projects and challenges are put out, how many people are in at any one time. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming along. Thanks, Joe, for tipping in. And do have a look, Joe. You want to put some links in for people to have a look at the work. And certainly anyone else who has a story to share, don't be shy. Great link. And if you're interested, contact me because as I said, I want to share more stories. Join the wiki. And do try to aim for that student-driven, what age the students are, project level of work, because that's where the best learning's happening. And I haven't even touched on digital citizenship, which is one of my other key hobby horses. But all along the way, in every one of those projects I've just shown you, digital citizenship comes along for the ride. And so it's a lived curriculum where students are learning about digital citizenship by being digital citizens. And I hope everyone's enjoying all their time in EVO at the moment. And get into the MOOC, get into the Minecraft server. Don't let kids have all the fun. Thanks, Jeff, for managing that. I saw you just stopped the recording. Excellent. So I hope it was useful. Might go and make some breakfast now. And Vance's cat is typing. Vance is going to bed now because it's midnight. Thanks, everybody.